our servicemen and women who are stationed around the globe, especially in Afghanistan, and I hope everyone gets out safely. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pelletieri for the We Are Sachem Superintendent's Report.
Thank you very much. Let's jump right in. We have a presentation up on the board already about back-to-school planning. Again, this back-to-school planning is something that is where we are now. It's not finalized planning. Obviously, more people need to weigh in on it. I do want to have public feedback as well. So you'll see an opportunity for that via Zoom forum next week. But this is where we are with our back-to-school planning now, as of today. Who's doing? Randy, are you doing that for me, or? Are you able to hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. Were you able to hear what I just said? No? We are. I apologize. This is where our plan currently stands as of today, August 18th. And as I said, we will be looking for community feedback as well over this next week. This is where our plan is as of today. It's not a finalized plan as of yet. So we have priorities, obviously, where we came together to plan our back to school for our students. And the first priority, as always, is health and safety of all students and staff. In-person instruction for K-12 students every day. We would not have cohort days or hybrid days as we started last year. All students, as we ended last year, being in school would be in school. There would not be A cohorts, B cohorts, anything like that. We do want to be careful to minimize quarantines for students, staff, and their families. We had real horror stories last year, kids quarantining 3 and 4 times. Really bothersome for families, really troublesome for students. So we want to minimize that as much as possible. And we certainly want to focus this year, as we talked about, on social, emotional, mental health for students and staff as well. Very concerned about our staff as the adults in the building. So here's where our plan, again, I reiterate, stands as of today. We still have more time. We still have more people to speak with. But this is where we stand for today. Every K-12 student is scheduled for daily in-person instruction. There would not be an option or choice, in other words, where I'm going to take a remote option or live stream into class. We would have, for medically fragile students, some people use the term, or medically verified pandemic-related illness, those students would be able to receive home instruction. What home instruction means is a teacher teaches your child via virtually online for 2 hours a day at the secondary level each day, or 1 hour a day at the elementary level each day. It is not a typical, as we did last year at some points, and some people would argue we did it well, others would argue we did it poorly, but it is not a remote option. Again, it would be for those who are medically fragile or those in their homes. Those people in their homes are medically fragile. And home instruction is with support of the school and the teacher. This mic is terrible. Homeschooling, some people have decided that they're going to do homeschooling. If they were to do homeschooling, then that is a parent option, and the parent would provide the instruction and the schooling. That is different from what's being offered here. In our schools, we will have 3 feet of social distancing in classroom. You'll notice this boardroom today was set up with 3 feet. Last year was at 6 feet. This year we followed guidance. They permitted us to move to 3 feet. So we are now at 3 feet. That's what our classrooms will be set up as well. There
Guys,
are more open
chairs.
seats.
We took all the reserved off.
There are more
all these seats
open
are available
seats here
for you if you'd like. Please.
Thank you. Hello? No. I think that might be worse. It's all right. what we're talking about, I know a lot of people want to talk about masks. We recently today came across some information around hybrid approaches to masking in some other districts. It's something that we've talked about as a board as well, and want to give the opportunity to lead more into and learn more about. But an approach to masking where students in hallways, in small group instruction opportunities would be wearing masks, but students while seated at their desks would not have to wear masks. That's something that we're looking at now. Again, it's a hybrid approach. It's something that we've asked for in terms of local control. It would not be something that we did last year. It's a different approach. Again, a hybrid approach to masking, and it's something that we're looking at much more closely now. It still need a little more time to work through, which is why, again, this is where our plan stands as of today. Masks are required by federal law, regulation on buses and transportation. And we're going to have masks for students and staff on buses, and anytime they're in small group instruction, anytime they're closer than 3 feet and a distance cannot be maintained. And that's a quote right from the CDC and New York State Ed guidance. Passengers on public conveyance are required to wear masks. Masks will not be required outdoors or during recess. We will not have the daily health screeners or temperature checks that we had to have last year in our buildings. That guidance, that mandate has been dropped by the state. We are looking at live stream for quarantine students, and there will unfortunately be quarantined students perhaps. Certainly any student that is positive would have to be quarantined, and we are exploring live streaming for that. You'll recall last year we did have live streaming, again, some successful, some not so. So we're trying to look at better options if we can in that area. We are trying to make our day for our students and our staff as normal as possible. So we are planning the K-5 specials scheduled in their original classrooms. So they're back in their art rooms, they're back in their multi-purpose rooms, they're back in their libraries, visiting libraries and those places. We're back to regular start times. We're not going to alter our day at secondary level in terms of bell schedule or anything like that. Back to the way we were. All curricular activities, clubs, athletics will be offered as they have been in the past. Visitors are allowed back in our buildings. However, they'll be subjected to whatever our mask policy is at that time that is finalized. We will have field trips. We will have competition. We will have sports. We want those things to come back for our students. We will have music, theater, art shows, assemblies, student performances, parents in the building again, PTA in our buildings again. We'll bring all those back. We will have lunch back in our cafeterias again. Last year, our lunch folks were delivering lunch to rooms and things like that. We appreciate those efforts. This year, everything will be back in our cafeterias as they were in the past. And we will continue our cleaning protocols as last year, cleaning throughout the day and making sure that we're doing a deep cleaning each night. We will finalize all this by September 1st, 2021. Last year, the state mandated that we have a plan put on our website. We will do that ourselves. That is not mandated this year, but that information will go out to everyone in the community. So far, we've already met with our facilities, our clerical, our nurses, our food services, security, administrators, teachers, supervisors, but we haven't heard from everyone in the community yet. I know a lot of you are here tonight and anxious to speak, and you'll get that opportunity, but we want to make sure that we're able to hear from all the folks. I'm sorry that we couldn't fit everyone. I know we may have some people in the little theater as well that may want to come up and speak. So we want to get the feedback from everyone in the community. There will be a Zoom. We're going to determine exactly the date and time. I think we're going to do it on the 25th, but Ms. Hines, we may have to move it to the 26th. I'll explain that later. But again, we wanted to get feedback from everyone. The next slide. So here are some scenarios that are concerning us and that I want everyone to be aware of very clearly from the outset. Right now, the guidance is such that if everyone in your classroom is masked and a student has COVID, in this scenario, student 18 in that red box has COVID, if everyone is masked, then no one else has to quarantine, save for that student. We go to the next slide. If you don't have everyone wearing masks, then if student 18 is unmasked or anyone else within 3 feet or 6 feet of student 18, they would have to quarantine. In this scenario, it's a great many number of students from that one class. So that is a concern. Obviously, we want to limit quarantine as much as possible. And I just want us to be aware of that is something that is we don't have control over. Ms. Hines, you want to go next one? One of the things we are looking at trying to do is being as careful as policy with our policies as careful as possible with our policies in terms of mask use, for example. So we're looking at this hybrid mask policies that some districts have and that our board brought to us and we spoke about earlier today. I've spoken with people around where, again, at desks, students could have their masks off. This is a option that we were to look at and be flexible. I asked this last year a lot of times to be as flexible as possible. And I really do appreciate this community coming together and being as flexible as possible. There were a ton of changes. And I want us to be prepared for that could happen again. And so we may be in certain scenarios where we're doing better, where we're in a good spot, and then therefore we could have opportunities where perhaps we're not masked in a hybrid mask policy. Perhaps there's more that we can do in our buildings, but there may be times when we are told, and we'll have to look at our infection rates, that we have to do more. So we're going to start out again with as least as possible, if we can, including that hybrid mask policy, but may need to move forward with more if we need to. So I just want to remind us again about that, about being flexible. Anything else, Ms. Hines, or is that that's the last one? All right, board, questions, comments?
Hey, Chris, just
Please.
if you could just comment on the quarantine, right? Because again, you said it's not in our control. Just maybe you can just share that with the community. So
Sure.
they understand quarantining is really, again, outside of our realm of responsibility.
Yes,
right?
we are mandated to quarantine as per Suffolk County Department of Health. It's not something that we decide based on feed or mask or not mask or anything like that. That is something that we are told has to be done. And we end up doing a lot of that work, not a lot, all of that work. And that was a complaint I had last year. And it seems that that is staring us in the face again.
Anyone else? Please.
Chris, when we're talking about using maybe an infection rate or some gauge of cases to decide how and if we're going to move to the right on that chart, can we look at basing that not necessarily on Suffolk County generally, but on the hamlets that we live in? Because I don't think we may not be reflective. You know, Suffolk County might be rolling in some higher density districts with higher case numbers, but really wouldn't be prevalent.
I would propose that we base it on a particular school. Not only if there might be a school, and we had this last year, Mr. Incerni, where a school, unfortunately, example, Linwood School had to shut down for a little bit, but the rest of the district stayed open. And so I would argue that, or put forward that we should have a similar type of policy in that we don't measure the entire district by one swath and say, okay, because we met this threshold, now the entire district has to do something. It should be by school.
So you would have a chart showing our
Yeah.
schools. Okay.
And we'd work with the Department of Health to try to get their feedback on what is the best way to do that.
Anyone else? Please.
Chris, just for a point of clarification on the hybrid masking policy, what's being proposed is that while students could be socially distanced at 3 feet, okay, we would allow them, as per their choice, to lower their mask. But anytime a student is not at 3 feet, assemblies, large gatherings, school buses, masks would be required.
Yes.
And in doing that, that would eliminate the mask wearing for children, upwards of 75% of their day.
For the great majority of their day. That's right.
Thank you.
Again, Chris, passing time, it would be masks, right?
Right.
So for the
If
secondary level.
so we put the kidney tables back in the elementary building. We want the kids to be back at the kidney table.
Right.
But when they come and there's 5 of them together, and if they're closer than 3 feet, we would say during that 15 minutes of small group instruction, we would have masks up. And then the rest of the time when they went back to the seat, they'd be down.
Thank you.
Jim?
So under this hybrid, visitors then would be mandated to wear masks, yes?
I'm confident that we would ask people that came in the building who were visitors to the building to wear masks.
Thank
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Can we all just take our cell phones off the table, maybe? I hear that buzzing, and sometimes it's our phones that do it. Yeah, just take it off the table. I don't hear it anymore, maybe because we just took them off.
Chris, this tentative policy obviously is all determined by what possibly might be handed down to us from the state. But will this tentative policy be made available on our website?
Oh, this is going to go up on our website tomorrow. We'll flesh out the rest of this policy a little more concretely and put it up as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go over to page 2, and we're on letter E. Approval of minutes for the July 21st, 2021 meeting. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Reynolds, second by Mr. Isernia. All in favor? Any questions? Opposed? Motion is carried. All right. What? Yeah, letter number 4. So we're going to have public comment. I'm just going to ask that anyone coming up to speak understand that it's 3 minutes. Randy is going to keep the time for us, and I just ask that when she says that's your 3 minutes, wrap it up. We'll let you finish your sentence or so, but then respect. I have about 25, 30 cards here, so I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak, please. Dr. Brooks Camino. I apologize if I butcher. Okay. Just push the button when you guys come up, please. Yes, please.
Do I have to hold it?
No,
It's good like
Yeah,
that? Okay.
Is it green when you push it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. So I wanted to just thank you guys again. I know it's a tough spot for you guys all to be in, and I appreciate you being here tonight, letting so many of us in, and taking the time to really hear what we have to say. So that doesn't happen everywhere, and I think that's important. I think the last time I spoke, I spoke about a lot of statistics that were out there. I wanted to speak more to, I guess, the logistics and the rationale for masks and the idea, I guess, against them. They're not going to be worn in any other social situation other than schools. So I think Cuomo cited a stat 4 or 5 months ago that like 78% of cases are coming, inside the home, at family parties, at birthday parties, travel baseball, whatever it is. So it doesn't make a ton of sense to force the kids into mass 8 hours a day if they're just going to be going home hanging out with the same kids anyway. Optics wise, it probably looks good, but if going for whatever effect you think you're going to get from masks, I don't think it's going to be all that effective. The emergency is over. We have treatments. We have a vaccine basically for anybody who has wanted to get the vaccine. I understand there's some people that may not have gotten it. Maybe they're immunocompromised. They're not allowed. Or they're just a little ambivalent. I get it. But at this point, it comes down to, I feel like it's personal choice. So the solution is there. So who are we protecting from the virus by masking the kids? We'd be protecting people that have chosen not to get the vaccine and maybe those that are immunocompromised. But again, those people, unfortunately, would have COVID, would have flu, would have any one of 1,000 other different things they have to worry about. I don't think policing to the extremes is an effective way to really run a society, unfortunately. In terms of how COVID is spread, COVID is aerosolized, right? It's not really droplet spread. So if you have a mask, that may stop me from spitting on you or coughing on you. But if you have ever worn a mask and your glasses fog up, that's all the water vapor and everything escaping that mask. They are not airtight. They're not stopping as much as you think they are. And any study that has looked at this has looked at cloth masks being placed on plastic faces and shooting an aerosol through. And maybe they're stopping some droplets, maybe they're stopping some, but they haven't been able to determine, is that statistically significant in the amount of droplets that they're stopping? So it may just look like, we're stopping 40%. Well, if there's still 60% in the air, what difference does it make anyway? You've had several people just even in the last week, Mike Osterholm, who is a Biden advisor, admitted cloth masks, surgical masks do not work. He is of the theory of putting people in N95s, which are pretty tough if you've never worn one. And even those, if you go and buy the book on how to wear those, you're really supposed to be ditching those every day. People don't do that. They fold them up, they put it in their bag, they hang them from the car mirror. That's three. Okay. Just one last thing. That's all I had. Just to put everything into perspective, there were 4,500 kids under the age of 19 that died in 2016 in motor vehicle accidents. There were less than 400 in the last year and a half that passed to COVID, many of which unfortunately did have pre-existing conditions. So if we're really concerned about protecting the kids, maybe we should be looking at, lowering the speed limit to 15 miles an hour. So thank you guys. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Meredith Volpe?
Hi, Meredith.
How are you? Dr. P, Cabinet, Board of Ed. Most of you know me. I'm Meredith Volpe, mom, community member, and until this past June, Board of Ed trustee. I sat in your seats. I know how hard some of the decisions you make are. What I'm asking is that you put aside all the noise. You look at the science and the facts. The fact is, if you take the number of deaths, which is 624,000 over the past year and a half, divide that by our total population, which is 37.2 million, you get the percentage or chance of death from COVID, which is 0.01%. You could do the math if you don't trust mine. No one denies COVID exists. No one denies it's scary. No one denies it can be horrific for those who contract it. But when making decisions that have great impact, we must deal in facts. Facts don't change based off of feelings or politics. Right now, the fact is that the Delta variant is one that can spread quickly, but it also has a much lower death rate than the already low death rate I just told you about. Another fact is that no one has studied the lasting effects that mask wearing can have on our children, both mentally and physically. Another fact is that the vaccine does not have years of testing. It just can't. It hasn't been around that long. Therefore, it's unfair that anyone tell anyone what to do with their body. What I'm asking is that you all take a stand. Be proactive rather than reactive. Stand up now for anyone and start to try to make tries to make mandates. Your voices lend others to find their voices. On December 1st, 1955, a very brave woman took a stand, or actually a seat. Her name was Rosa Parks. She did not know what the outcome would be, and she certainly didn't know how much she would change the world. But what she did know is that she needed to do the right thing, even if the powers that be told her that it was wrong. Where would we be today if she never found her brave moment? Helen Keller, another brave and powerful woman, said, "Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much." I'm looking for you to speak out together as a board to help save our children from something far worse than COVID. Do what you know is right. See through the politics, see through the feelings, and look at the facts. Make a motion to write to the governor and all local politicians. Tell them that Sachem stands for choice. Sachem will lead the way to helping us all save our children from the damage that these masks and possibly the vaccine is something that Sachem won't stand for. We value our children. To us, they matter, and we will stand together and never lose our voices. Please just get together. I know you said that you're going to do a hybrid of masks. Masks should really be choice. There shouldn't be a hybrid, because every child that you mask against their will is a child that you're mentally damaging. If a child does not want to have a mask on, a child should not have a mask on. It's that simple. It's not your decision to say that they should have hybrid. It's your decision to say, we need to stand up for these children. I know it's a hard decision. I know that there's a lot of eyes looking at you. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. Frank Kindly?
Is it on? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to approach this from kind of maybe a different approach. I'm a person of faith, and I feel like the overall narrative in the country and on social media, it's taken more of like a religious tone as far as science goes, where if you don't believe the science, you're a heretic or an apostate to the human race, basically, because you don't believe the narrative that's being portrayed, the gospel message that they're giving you. It's not if you don't follow the narrative, then you're basically an outcast to society. So with respect to the hybrid option, I appreciate you're trying to find a go-between with everything, but as was already said, at some point actions speak louder than words. And something that troubled me when I listened to the June 2nd meeting, right at the end of the meeting, there was a point that kind of caught me where it was said at the meeting that $125 million of our budget comes from the state. And I don't know exactly how that works in the machinations of, taking care of all of the school district and everything. But it seems kind of odd to me that my tax dollars are being extracted from my labor, from my work, and it's being dangled over your heads like a big carrot and stick to basically, punish my kids, my daughter, I mean, I don't understand where it is in the Constitution where they can have an unelected bureaucrat in the health department, have a powwow with an unelected bureaucrat in the education department, and then they can dangle that over us and hold us hostage for what's best for our kids. Where's the constitutionality of that? How can you uphold your oath to the state constitution when they're basically abjuring the whole way things should work? I mean, I shouldn't have to pay for their unelected position for them to just, punish my daughter with a mask. It doesn't make any sense to me, And to go back to the religious aspect, every power-hungry politician, every doctor in a lab coat, the media, and the fact checkers. If you're not sticking to their gospel message, you're not even allowed to have a conversation anymore. And it between that and the fact that the funds that help fund our district, it makes us powerless in every aspect. We can't say anything. We can't control the cost of milk because they're spending money out the wazoo to ruin us as far as just trying to make a living. And now we can't even say what we can't even work towards getting our kids maskless because they have control over the school board with this funds or the money that they're basically hanging over your head. So thank you.
Thank you. Brian Costello.
Good evening. I'm going to keep this really short. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room, including you board members, know the facts about COVID, that it's not really affecting children as much as elderly, immune compromised people. And I just want to know when in our history, why we are asking the children to protect the adults. It's never been that way in human history. The adults protect the children. So people are allowed to smoke cigarettes and overeat and do things recklessly with their life, which some of those cause you to be more susceptible to COVID. And we're going to ask the children to wear masks for 6 hours a day to protect those people that could do anything they want. That's my point. That's it. That's all I have to say. I think it's ridiculous that the kids are wearing masks. Somebody brought up the point earlier that when they leave school, they're not wearing masks, right? So they're hanging out with their friends and they're not wearing masks. So what's the difference? And they see mentally, they see these concerts and these ball games on TV where all these people are hanging out, drinking, having a good time, no masks. And they're going to go in school and sit there with a mask on. What does that do to their brain? What does that do to their personality and the way that they grow up? This is our future. We really need to think about this. I think the hybrid option is not an option. That's it.
Deborah Kelton.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Here I stand yet again discussing my son's right to breathe. We are beginning another school year, the third school year to be altered and, in my opinion, just ruined. I am still talking about the psychological warfare being waged against our kids with regard to distancing, quarantines, testing, and masks. By now, I am hopeful that all of you, or at least some of you, are truly aware of what's going on in our world today. I can assure you it's not all about our safety. I am imploring the board and superintendent to stand firm for parental choice regarding masking our kids. We as parents do not co-parent with the government, the state education department, Department of Health, teachers unions, or the CDC. All of these agencies have absolutely no legal enforcement or law-making abilities over the citizens of this country, let alone our children. Let me just ask you all this. Would you restrict your own dog or cat's breathing for 40 hours a week in a mask? Would you consider, or would a neighbor who saw you doing this to your precious pet consider that animal abuse? I know I would. Well, masking healthy kids is equally the same. It's child abuse. Many of you are parents up there. I know. You must know this in your soul that it's wrong on every level. You don't need somebody to tell you this. You just know it. It is psychological abuse to force people to behave as if they are sick when they are not. Each of you are complicit in teaching our kids that the air around them is toxic, that everyone around them is sick, by continuing to go along with all this. You are complicit in illegally requiring investigational medical therapy or a device not FDA approved, as masks still fall under the EUA. The fact that mask wearing poses some health risks and harm to the wearer should indicate children should not be forced to wear them, particularly because the kids are not ill. They've done nothing wrong to warrant infringement of their constitutional rights and bodily autonomy. You are complicit in damaging their natural immune systems by constricting their breathing and oxygen levels and hindering their immune systems. So in the future, they won't be able to fight off future illnesses. Did any of you hear about the recent Brown University study that just came out last week, that our toddlers, our infants, our children, their IQ levels are lower by 25%? I urge you all to look up this Brown University study. Masking our kids is not keeping them safe. They are safe. It is not to keep the adults safe because they have the shot. And if they choose, they have other personal choices of their own. I want you to know, like the past parent said, my son has traveled all over this summer for travel lacrosse. He stayed in hotel buildings. All the teams, they're together on masks. We just went to Splish Splash. They're in the lazy river, tube to tube, coughing, hacking. They're on lines, back to back. They're angry. They're wondering why all summer, 9-10 weeks, and then they come back to school and it's the building. School equals now angry. Why are these people in this building making me mask up when all this time has gone by and I haven't had to? So.
Thank you. Caitlin McEnany.
Is this on? Okay. Yeah. All right. Good evening, and thank you to the members of the board for being here, along with members of the faculty, staff, and parents. My name is Caitlin McEnany. My son will be starting UPK in September. We were very lucky to have been selected for the full-day lottery. Having said that, I feel that it is the best interest of our children to be in school, to be in person, learning their alphabets, learning to read, learn their numbers, colors, and so much more, like social interaction. If our children and teachers are wearing a mask, how do you expect them to learn social expression and reaction? I am begging you to please leave it up to the parents to send our kids in a mask or not. We live in a society that preaches my body, my choice. Well, how about my kid, my choice? There are reports from other states that school districts are getting additional funding to mandate masks this year. Let me be perfectly clear. My child and our children are not for sale. They will never be for sale. And let's talk about scientific literature and the fact that there have been 0 studies done on what the long-term neurological, physical, emotional development impact of long-term use on a daily basis of wearing a face mask for children or adults for that matter will be. If we want to talk about scientific literature, not that I personally trust anything the CDC is using because I believe that they're funded and paid for by pharmaceutical companies. But that aside, there is a study after study showing the use of face masks does not significantly prevent the transmission of COVID-19 or the Delta variant that is so highly discussed. Why does that literature not matter? Why are we picking and choosing literature we follow and then forcing parents into making decisions they don't agree for their children? By forcing our kids to wear a piece of cloth over their face is not only child abuse, but debilitating their developing immune system from protecting them against the common viruses. I've watched friends and family leave the state that raised their kids in this school district and gave up all of their careers, everything, to escape everything that you're doing. The question is, when will this end? We are currently in month 17 of 14 days to flatten the curve. And yes, you can say my kid is putting other people at risk and not wearing a mask, but they have the choice to wear a mask. They have a choice to get vaccinated. No one is stopping them. Those who have chosen to protect themselves in a way have already made their choices. So now let us make ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Camino? I apologize. I don't know. I can't say what it says. Okay.
Green light means it's on, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tonight, we all are gathered here again to discuss the nonsensical, non-scientific, unproven mask mandates and soon-to-come vaccine mandates that are destroying the mental and physical health of our children. For 18 months, parents have gathered before the Board of Ed presenting facts that these mandates are arbitrary and not based on science. Therefore, parents want the right to choose whether or not their children wear a mask or get vaccinated. We have asked the Board of Ed to advocate for these choices. We, the parents, want to be in charge of our children's well-being and education, but our requests seem to keep falling on deaf ears. What a terrible, disappointing message being sent to our children, such as, you don't matter, we don't care about you, too bad how you feel, and do what you're told. And the big one, don't be a killer by not wearing a mask. This nation has been infected by chaos and idiocracy fueled by political agenda that are shoved down our children's throats and society's throat. Think about this. The CDC mandates that all people, vaccinated or not, to wear a mask. But studies show COVID vaccinated people have gotten infected with the COVID virus. Common sense tells me the vaccine can prevent infection, spread of infection, or reinfection. But these imbeciles in charge making these mandates want to make us all believe a mask is going to prevent infection and spread. Wow, sounds like idiocracy to me, just morons. In some places, those speaking out, asking questions and not complying, not accepting the garbage of mandates and indoctrination have been targeted, sued, and jailed. Goes to show what is important to those that are making the rules, such as control, silence, and in destroying society, not educating and or the well-being and what's in the best interest of our children. I guess it's easy to comply and throw our children to the wolves as long as it does not negatively affect those making the rules. I will be damned before I let my child be a sacrificial lamb. And do not be fooled. Those of you that are complying and enforcing these mandates will be dismissed by the very people you support that are destroying our children. That time will come the minute there is no longer a need for your services. Who is going to push their agenda when all or most parents pull their children out of the school and begin homeschooling? This fight is about our children's well-being and future, not to comply to twisted and disgusting evil new ways of life. I am sad and outraged and very frightened that our leaders have taken over every aspect and decision-making of our lives. They implement evil and chaos in our nation, using our children as pawns to force this agenda that will destroy all society, and how easily and frightened how easily so many are complying and accepting this evil and garbage that they are pushing. Okay, I am hoping in that there's some hope left, that we all stand up and stop this chaos.
Thank you. Robert Oberg.
Turn it off. Hi, how are you? I'm Robert Oberg. I'm a member of the community, and I've housed in the Safety School District for approximately 5 years. I have two girls, one that's 4 and one that's 2. I would like to start this speech with a quote from an article in the Wall Street Journal that argued, "It's abusive to force our kids who struggle with masks to sacrifice for the sake of unvaccinated adults." This is the heart of my argument and why I stand before you today to implore you not to force masks upon our children. We began this journey by being told that we need to come together just to flatten the curve. Then we were told we have to hang on for a little longer and a little longer and longer. Then we were told we must wait for the vaccine. And then we were told we need to wait until everyone, not just the high-risk individuals, had a chance to get the vaccine. We have been for quite some time at a point where every person is able to get the vaccine whenever they want. In all this time, we put the needs of the most important group of people, and that is our children. Children who are our future and the ones who will be taking care of us. We're old and gray, which includes every one of you. These children have been asked to put their lives on hold in the most important years of their lives. It's easy for us to say it's been a year and a half, but for a child, this is literally a large percentage of their current lifetime. We took away normalcy from these children. We took away birthday parties, where now a child must sit on his front steps to his house while a car passes, beeping their horns for a couple minutes, and then the child is left to celebrate his or her birthday alone. No cake, no piñata, no singing, no dancing, all in the name of safety. I ask you, the members of the board, would you go back in time and erase 1 or 2 of your birthdays? All right? In the most important years of your life, when you are old and gray and sitting in a retirement home and all we have are our precious memories, would you give up one of those moments? I know you wouldn't. You would risk everything just to get one of those moments back. This is what you're doing to our children. It's not just about masks. It's greater than that. If you mask our children, you are taking away normalcy we were all brought up in. We are taking away the chance to develop the same memories that made us who we are today. Now children must stand 6 feet apart, cover their faces, not interact with each other, and sit behind plexiglass walls. In fact, student interaction is a known teaching tool and a method of differentiated learning, which pairs students of varying skills so that they may learn from each other, which we lose with these draconian measures. The mask is a symbol, and the symbols have meanings. This symbol sends a message that we really don't want to hear their voices. It sends a message to withhold their feelings and expressions. It's a muzzle. It's a silencer. It's a form of obedience and subservience. It is because of this that it's been abused as a political tool, and our children are just the collateral damage of a political war that is waging. And if you don't believe that symbols have meaning, I would be glad to share some historical symbols that will deeply offend people. All right, I'll finish up. I ask you now to unmask our children, rise above the politics, and carry out the duties of the stations you have been assigned. Our forefathers envisioned a government that was for the people and by the people. They envisioned a government in which politics and political offices like the ones you sit were designed for the benefit of the people and were ran by citizens who were there for the benefit of the people. Please put the needs of these children before the needs of politics, because they are our future and they are the ones taking care of us someday.
Thank you. Kristen Dukas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen. I am addressing you all tonight regarding parents' choice for masks. The state has given local control to the school districts, and so your decisions for the new school year are purely a judgment call and completely at your discretion. The fate of our children is in your hands, and we, the parents, expect you to do the right thing. In the past few months, we've seen loosened restrictions everywhere, even in our own schools where masks are optional. We are now 18 months into this pandemic. If we are no longer in grave danger to warrant a state of emergency, then strict restrictions on our kids are also not warranted. We are in a very different position than we were a year ago. Students went maskless for weeks in multiple summer programs and camps that St. John held. There was no surge that ended in shutdowns. There were no protocols in place. So why do we need them in September? There's no difference. You want kids in school safely, and you're doing it right now. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. Use the data you've accrued over the last several weeks, which clearly indicates a lack of need for COVID protocols in schools. What is your reasoning for contemplating changing what has clearly been working this summer? Show me the data that supports our children were at an increased risk with these loosened protocols. How can you justify mandating something that's not even law? I'll be eagerly awaiting your proof of scientific, medical, and educational evidence that provides any plausible basis for mask mandates. This is a virus. It's not going to be eradicated as long as we have a vaccine that still passes this virus to others. We've never masked up for strep, bronchitis, flu, or any other virus that exists. The variants are going to keep popping up, so it is not morally ethical to think that kids should be masked for years to come. We must think outside the box because our kids' quality of life depends on it. Parents can sign waivers if they don't want their kids masked. You can come up with a higher positivity rate where masks and other such protocols can be revisited. Before you make any important decisions regarding the safety and well-being of our children, let me remind you that as elected officials, you've been sworn to oath to uphold the New York State Constitution, United States Constitution, and to protect basic freedoms and human rights. Your role in complying is a part of what is destroying America right now. At the end of the day, I truly hope that you are all able to put your head on your pillow at night and sleep with a clear conscience. In conclusion, I would like to submit to all of you a petition that was created 6 days ago in favor of freedom for choice for mask wearing. In this time, we collected 646 signatures. Please look this over as we, the parents, have a constitutional right to decide what we feel is best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen, you can just give them right to Randy. Thank you. Lauren Rakebrandt.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Lauren Rakebrandt. I have a son that is entering second grade this year. I also have two stepkids in Sachem North. I am employed as a New York City detective, so I am a fact finder. Today, I'm here to present you with the facts regarding face masks in school. In April of 2020, the CDC, and the WHO both agreed that ordinary people did not need to wear masks unless they were sick and coughing. The WHO actually stated in their report of June 5th, at present, there is no direct evidence from studies on COVID-19 and in healthy people in the community on the effectiveness of universal masking of healthy people in the community to prevent infection with respiratory viruses, including COVID-19. Due to political lobbying, the WHO and the CDC both decided masks for everyone. While masks are an effective psychological tool to remind people to remain alert, are they really effective at keeping people from getting sick? In the early stages of the pandemic, the UK public health advice remained that masks for the general public were of little benefit and could even be harmful. Contrary to what our government tells us that it follows the science, the sudden change in the CDC and the WHO regarding mask wearing was not based on any new scientific studies. By summer of 2020, there was substantial evidence that non-medical masks for the general public did not reduce the transmission of respiratory viruses. Scientists, doctors, nurses have all stated that cloth masks offer zero protection against COVID-19. Not only are droplets small enough to get through a cloth mask, but there is also cross-contamination from kids adjusting them, taking them off for mask breaks, taking them off to eat, etc. I have washed my son's masks. They're disgusting. While there is little to no evidence that cloth face masks help prevent transmission of COVID-19, there is plenty of evidence to suggest that they are harming our children biologically and psychologically. Potential harm from constant mask wearing include exhaustion, headaches, fatigue, and dehydration. Some doctors have suggested an increased risk of pneumonia as well. Contamination of the upper respiratory tract by viruses and bacteria that are on the outside of medical face masks have been detected in several hospitals. Another research shows that moist masks are a breeding ground for antibiotic-resistant bacteria and fungi, which can undermine mucosal viral immunity. Face masks preventing the mirroring of facial expressions, which is a process that facilitates empathetic connections and trust between students and teachers. This can potentially lead to a significant increase in socio-psychological stress. A recent study by the CDC, of all people, concluded that young adults 18 to 24 years of age had a 63% increase in anxiety and depression. Now imagine what our little elementary school kids are going through silently. I have to wear a mask to enter a restaurant, but I can remove a mask once I'm seated at the table. COVID must know GPS or something. Florida did not have a mask mandate or a lockdown, and their COVID cases were less than New York's per capita, even with a large elderly population. If mask and lockdowns worked, if shutting down schools worked, why are we still fighting COVID? The answer is because they don't work. There's plenty of evidence that masks don't work. Okay, I'll finish up. And there is zero evidence that they do. We are going to have to live with COVID for the rest of our lives, just like the flu. Are we supposed to keep ourselves and our kids masked forever? So what exactly is the metric? Is it 0 cases? Because that's never going to happen. My son has not had a normal day in school, a normal year, I'm sorry. Kindergarten ended in March. Online schooling, horrible, torture for both of us. And now he loved school in pre-K. He hates it. He cries. He has to go to school. He has to put his mask on. It's an ordeal. And it shouldn't be. He's in 2nd grade. This should be the fun days of school. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanya Hernandez? Sorry. Yes, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tanya. I just moved to this district. I have 2 kids going into your district, and one of the reasons that I moved here is because I was told that this district would fight for our children. I'm a registered nurse. I work at 2 hospitals in the area. I worked through COVID. I worked on COVID units. And in the nursing world, we network. I know a nurse from almost every hospital on this island. I know nurses in Florida. I know nurses that know nurses. And I just want to say that there's a major disconnect about what you see on the television and what's really happening. A huge disconnect. Right now, they're saying the ICUs are full. That is a lie. At the hospital that I work at today, there are 2 COVID patients in the ICU. Okay? The reason that I pointed that out is because basically I wanted to establish the fact that a lot of what we see is not true. Dr. Fauci stated that in March of 2020, and I quote, mask wearing is not providing the protection that you think. He also called for double masking in late January and then retracted that a week later. Now, another thing I want to point out is that RSV, I don't know if you guys know what that is, respiratory syncytial virus is on the rise in children. RSV will hospitalize your child, okay? RSV has a mortality rate of 0.5 to 1.7%. COVID has a mortality rate of 0.3% for children under 20. So the reason I point that out is because it is the consensus among the nurses that I network with and the extended network that the reason RSV is on the rise is because the children's immune systems have been destroyed. So if my child comes down with RSV and is hospitalized and dies, then I can hold you responsible, yes? I'm angry, these people are angry, and not every nurse may agree with me, but I can tell you about half or more do. I'd like to also point out that in major studies, the mask has actually proven to be harmful to children. 60% reporting headaches, difficulty concentrating, drowsiness, fatigue, decrease in oxygen, increase in carbon dioxide, which also is linked to lower immunity. Not to mention that masks in general just lower immunity in general. So I would ask that going forward, if the new governor does decide to say that they are going to mandate the masks, that at that time you would adopt the hybrid plan that you have. But right now, I would ask that you would just allow us to be free.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hernandez. The Posnick family. Larry, there's another chair there if you want to grab it. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Quincy Posnick. I am 7 years old and going into second grade at Tamarack. I do not want to go back to school this year if I have to wear a mask. It was hard last year wearing a mask. I had a tough time talking to my friends and my teachers. At recess, I got yelled at for playing tag because I wasn't allowed, and it made me really sad. I used to love school, and now I don't want to go anymore. I want to be able to breathe fresh air and see my teacher smiles and talk to my friends. I want it to be my choice and my parents' choice to wear a mask or not. And at some points, I cannot breathe. Thank you.
Great job, Quinn.
Hi, my name is Grayson Posnick. I'm 12 years old and going into 7th grade at Seneca. Like my brother, I also do not want to go back to school this year if I have to wear a mask. It's been so hard to concentrate and breathe while wearing the mask at school. Not only is it hard to breathe, but having my face covered all day gives me migraines, nosebleeds, and anxiety. I'd really like to get the experience of playing sports with my friends this year, but it won't be possible if I have to wear a mask. The thought of having my mouth and nose covered during physical activity brings feelings of panic because I had a traumatic experience after being forced to wear a mask during hockey practice last year. I became extremely sick to the point of passing out, and it was truly terrifying. My parents were so worried they almost took me to the ER. The thought of wearing a mask all day and at after-school activities makes me think it might not be worth it to come back at all. It would be easier to be excited about going back to school if it was my choice to wear a mask or not. My parents should be able to make that choice for me and my siblings. I worry about how they're feeling during the day as well as my dad, who's a SACHM teacher. Everyone should have the choice when it comes to their body and their well-being. Thank you.
Great job.
How you doing? My name is Larry Posnick. I am a lifelong SACHM resident, SACHM parent, and a SACHM teacher of 23 years, and I fully support my children's statements here tonight. What I saw in my own classroom and our hallways at SACHM East was enough to know that this is affecting students, but to think of how younger children experienced school last year really breaks my heart. No one should be forced to wear a mask. No one should be forced to get a new vaccine to keep their job or get an education, period. Choice is the only way to move forward so we all come through this successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Glenn Burns.
Name's Glenn Burns. I have a 5-year-old daughter that's entering kindergarten. I oppose these mask mandates. I believe it should be the parents' choice whether they want to mask their children or not. We've learned throughout this pandemic that the science does not support that these masks work. If anything, it's causing social, emotional, and physical damage on our children that we don't know what will happen in the future with the effects of this. You know, we watch petty tyrants behind the cameras without masks. And then the TV comes on, the cameras come on, they put the mask on. This has all become political theater. Okay. This has become very emotional for all of us. Our children are the ones that are affected the most. Sorry. I'm a little emotional about this. I just think that we all need to stick together and make the right decision. The CDC, the Board of Health, they flip-flop so much on their guidance. And I think we need to look further into where the truth really lies. To mandate it on our children is irresponsible, and it's just too quick of a thinking to just mandate our children, and that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Elisa Akabakian.
Hello. Off, on. Okay. Hi, my name is Alyssa Akabakian, mom of 3, 2 in the district. My 9-year-old son is in the special ed program with learning disabilities, and my 6-year-old daughter receives additional help in speech and reading. My children are scared, and not of the virus, but for the up-and-coming school year, something that they're usually excited for. A place where they once enjoyed and felt comfortable at, they don't anymore. They worry that their lives will never go back to normal. This isn't about the virus. This is about the mental and psychological damage and abuse that you're allowing to be done on our children. At one point, my son had 6 people in his class, but there was no way to socially distance their desks so they didn't have to wear masks all day. And yet, in the same aspect, they can lower their masks to eat at that very same spot. Because of class separation, he only had those few students to play and socialize with. Every day, he would come home crying because he couldn't play with his friends in the other classes at recess. How can you logically explain that to any child, especially those with disabilities? Last spring, my daughter, who suffered from seasonal allergies, was forced to wear a mask outside during recess with temperatures well in the 80s. My daughter suffered from heat exhaustion due to the mask, but because she showed signs of COVID, she was immediately quarantined until I picked her up. Pre-COVID, if that same situation were to occur, the normal protocol would be give the child some water, maybe a snack, and rest for a bit, and if they still didn't feel good, they would be sent down to the nurse. My daughter was offered none of that. How many people ignored her most basic needs in the name of COVID? Do we have to wait for her to pass out and hit her head or die from heat exhaustion to realize that might not be right for her? Not only were her basic needs ignored that day, but then the next day she was kicked out of school for not having a doctor's note. So now we had to prove her health in order for her to receive the required education. Not only was this embarrassing for her, but also confusing when you're telling a healthy 6-year-old child that they can't come back to school because they're sick when they're not. That's called Munchausen syndrome. We've let politics slip into our school system where they don't belong. We talk about listening to the science, but it's almost as if we're running from it. Instead of taking control of our own district, we've let the CDC decide. The CDC does not know my children. I do. We know that when it comes to learning, all children are different. Why would masking be any different? What is good for one child might not be good for the next. The choice must be left up to each individual family after evaluating their own personal risks. After talking to my family and doctors, I do not consent to any masking, medical testing, quarantining of any kind, including separation, isolation, discrimination, or holding. I don't give my consent to any experimental vaccination or any of all medical treatment from the school of any kind for my children. If you illegally mandate any medical therapy on my children, that act alone generates liability and somebody must be held responsible. I don't want to homeschool, but I will. I don't want to sell my house and move to a state where this isn't even a conversation, but I will. What I'm asking for is the choice to mask or not to mask. I'm asking for my children to get their lives back for normalcy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Costello, maybe? I apologize. I can't read the first name if I'm wrong.
Good evening. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of my 3 young children. I would like to begin by stating that I am happy that we are returning for in-person learning. However, I strongly believe that we should let parents decide if their children should wear a mask to school or not. It breaks my heart that my children, like many people said, are not excited as they usually would be about returning to school. In fact, they're dreading going back because they know that the masks are going to be returning. Last year was really hard for them, and it's really instilling a lot of fear on them and stress. But as a parent, I always believe that we should put our children first. We should be able to make our own choices when it comes to what's best for our children. The risks of COVID are low, and with children, it is clear that asymptomatic transmission of COVID is not the driving force behind the COVID outbreaks. Wearing a mask all day in school is a threat to a child's development. Wearing a mask for 6 hours a day is hazardous to anyone, especially a young, growing, and developing child. Face masks block oxygen, increase CO2 levels, leading to cognitive dysfunction. Studies show that masks lead to headaches, fatigue, dizziness, shortness of breath, dermatitis, and acne. Facial masks are so harmful to children because they block their ability to convey emotions and make it very difficult for young children who are developing social and linguistic skills too. Mask mandates are cruel to young kids. Not only are they uncomfortable, but they are harmful too. I believe that another year of mandated mask wearing for our children will make them grow to not like school, and it will scar them both physiologically and physically too. Please allow our children to breathe this upcoming school year.
Thank you. There are 2 more speakers, but it's not about masks or the agenda item, so we'll call you at the end. There's a separate section. Oh, okay. Cindy DeSimone? Sorry, I just got these.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
I didn't come here today to speak. I came here to listen. I wanted to hear what our community had to say. But I do feel the need to express my frustration with a lot of the comments that were made today. There were several speakers that said that for some time now it has been that a vaccine is available. For some time now, people have had choices, and we do, thank goodness, have the monoclonal antibodies and we have treatments. But you know what? Kids under 12 don't have a choice. Kids in the elementary schools do not have a choice. These children are vulnerable. I'm not going to try to change anybody's mind because everybody who walked in the store today already knows where they fall in this argument or in this crazy world that we live in. And I'm not going to waste my breath about that. I mean, I make hard decisions for my children. I kept my kids out for a year. They went back 3 months before school ended. Immediately had to quarantine one of them. This summer they're in camp and they're unmasked and they're doing great. I do not and will not feel comfortable with them going back unmasked. It's just not something that medically, and I am a nurse and I don't agree with the previous nurse. I worked through COVID as well. I had to walk past. I had to go through a lot, and I'm not going to put my kids through that. I will say that, you know what? You don't always get to do what you want to do. A lot of people are saying that your children.
Guys, hold up. Let her speak. Hold on.
Your children don't want to brush their teeth, but you make them because it's good for them. Your children don't want to put on a jacket.
Guys, listen. This is just so everybody knows. One of the biggest complaints that we get in email is if we allow choice. I'm not saying we didn't decide tonight, but the bullying aspect of the choice is somebody's biggest concern. If you don't agree with somebody, just let her speak and finish, and she goes back to the back. It doesn't matter whether we agree. We have to just let everybody talk, be respectful, and let's move on. Please.
There are some things that I agreed with that some people said. There are some things I did not agree with that some people said. I 1,000% agree that it should be a parent's choice whether or not their child wants to wear a mask, but only after every child has the opportunity to be vaccinated. Only after every parent gets to make the same choice for their child that they have gotten to make for themselves. And these children under 12 do not get that choice. Their parents don't have the opportunity to choose for them yet. So you really have to do the right thing. You have to be the people who stand up for those vulnerable children. And I'm not, you are going to end up doing whatever the state mandates you to do. That's what's going to happen. And everybody's going to do whatever they want to do. And it's going to be a mess.
Stop.
It's going to be a mess. But you know what? Everybody gets to make that choice when everybody has the same opportunities. We're all about opportunities. We're all about freedom. The children under 12 don't have that freedom. The children under 12 don't have that choice. Until they have that choice, please protect them. And then everybody can do what they need to do and make their own decision for their children. And I agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Erin Barone.
Hello. I was at the last board meeting, and I'm just a single mom with a son that's in Seneca. He's now going to be entering 7th grade. In 5th grade, we were kind of cut.
1 second. We're going to stop your time. Guys, we will have people removed if we have to. I understand that it's a hot topic. I understand we don't agree. New speakers up. I can't hear her because there's an argument going on in the back right corner. Just please stop. You can start again. You can start her time again if you need to, too.
It's fine. I have a son who's in 7th grade. He's going to be entering 7th grade. And in 5th grade, we were cut half short in March due to the whole pandemic, epidemic, whatever. And then 5th grade was ultimately supposed to be a preparation for 6th grade. So 6th grade was pretty much a disaster. They started on and off with the hybrid and every other day, whatever. Going into 7th grade now, I feel like my son has already been like taken away and taken back the preparation that he really did need and deserve to be going into the middle school and getting all excited to go into that new school and everything. But that's besides the fact. Besides the fact that children have been mask-free all summer, besides the fact that large amounts of carbon dioxide should not be being breathed in by young children all day, besides the fact that the first 2 weeks of school are usually extremely warm in temperature, and I have no idea if the air conditioners were fixed or are working or have been replaced, but please, let each individual parent choose what is best for their child. As happy as I am that not all children were negatively affected by wearing masks, I am not happy to say that my child, as well as many others, were negatively affected. His poor grades, just their general lack of communication, lack of facial recognition, kids not knowing who's in their class until halfway through the school year. Not knowing if a child is sad or happy, does that not matter anymore? My son, for lunch, they had assigned seatings and then they weren't allowed to just sit wherever they normally sit like every other year. So apparently he was sat at a table that had autistic children or whatever, and he would say, "Mommy, I think the other kids think that I'm autistic because I'm sick." Like, it was just a shit show. I think kids, when they go into the cafeteria, should be able to sit with their friends and sit wherever they want to sit. The whole social distancing thing was really bad emotionally for a lot of these kids. What happened to my body, my choice? The local government and schools have the authority to make their own decisions, and I am praying and begging you to make the right one for my child. Thank you.
Thank you. Sunday Machio.
Good evening. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I threw something quickly together after seeing the hybrid policy that was presented. The policies written here look simple enough, and I truly appreciate that you're trying to please everyone. And although I don't personally believe in masking children as a safety precaution, if we were forced to continue with this hybrid model, I worry about what that will really look like inside the classroom. Having an inside perspective in the classrooms as a recess aide in the district this last year, I can very much tell you that whether the policies are followed will depend on the teacher the child has. Last year, I watched teachers still require masks for students outdoors when masks were not required. Students obliged in fear of disappointing their teachers. Students who didn't know what belief their teachers held stayed masked as to avoid being scolded and shamed in front of their peers, my daughter included. Dr. Pelletieri, you were wonderful in following up with emails and reminding teachers that masks under certain circumstances weren't required. But I'd like you to consider that not all that agree with this policy will follow, and this puts our children in a very vulnerable position. I don't know the answer to this except parent choice, but I believe it's important to take it into consideration when moving forward with this policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Also, just quickly, I brought a friend with me. She's not part of the Sachem district, but she is a nurse, pediatric nurse practitioner. And I don't know if you would allow her that 3 minutes to speak, but we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Please.
Hi,
1 second
everybody.
before you go, okay? Because I just don't. I don't know the policy. I looked at it. I didn't see anything. We both looked at it the other day. Do we have a policy in place that prohibits an outsider? I apologize. I don't want to call not outsider, but somebody who does not live in the district.
So I'm gonna confess that as we're sitting here, I don't have yours committed to memory. It is permissible for a board to limit speakers to those who are residents of the district, if you so choose, as long as it's applied consistently. I don't think that if you made the exception in this particular instance for 3 minutes, that it would set a precedent that you'd be able to look at your policy again and make sure that you're compliant in the future, but you wouldn't be creating some unbreakable precedent.
Good. That's what I need to know. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'm not a public speaker. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. And now I'm a little, didn't think I was going to speak. So, my name is Jenny Zethner. I'm from the Harborfield School District. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I've been working with children for over 25 years. I've been speaking at many, many Board of Ed meetings. It is so enlightening and interesting. They're all very different. Just to, so your community appreciates. I think this is the first time that I've heard this hybrid model. Perhaps there'll be more of them, but at least you're kind of in a positive direction. So there's room for everybody. Most districts that I'm hearing are a bit more strict. I understand as a board that, well, for starters, I did see the letter that you wrote in June, and that was one of the strongest letters I've seen from a district. Back in June, we were asking all the Board of Eds to write to the governor and to Dr. Zucker to advocate for the students that you wanted to remove the masks. And if I recall from your letter, you did ask for the masks to be removed, that your community was doing well. Is that correct?
Yep.
Right. So I guess as I sit here, I thought I would come in here and hear that now that you have the choice, that you wouldn't mask them at all. You'd leave it at, now that the district has a choice to do what they want to do, that you would opt to allow to not mask at all, actually, or to leave it up to the parent, which makes sense to me. So I'm not sure what changed from June to now for you, except I can imagine that it's the stress that the rest of the world is feeling from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics. So know that in medicine, it is fluid. It is always changing. We used to prescribe cigarettes to pregnant women, no joke, for anxiety, right? So everything's changing constantly. We're talking about 1 year. A year ago, Dr. Zucker, who is the New York State Health Commissioner for New York State, made the following statement in July. The mask should be for the healthcare worker. The public should not be wearing a mask. Wearing a mask can put you at even more risk. Dr. Fauci also made a statement, which one of the other community members said. So we're talking 1 year. Nobody knows what's going on, right? This is going to go down in history, right, across the world of what we're doing here to our children, particularly. There's 32 states right now that are sitting with their Board of Eds doing just this. 32 states have stated it's up to you guys, the districts, which is horrible, I think, that it's being left up to the districts since you're a Board of Education, not health. I'm going to speak quickly because I just want to get some facts in, because again, you're feeling the force from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC, and they have spoken against their own statement over and over again throughout this past year of being in the pandemic. The American Academy of Pediatrics particularly did a study. I'd be happy to share it with you. Not a study. They made a statement that children are not super spreaders based on what they're seeing. So they made that statement last year in October that children are not super spreaders. Now they're saying that they are. That is not true. Masks is so controversial, and there's volumes of data that I'd be happy to share with you that masks are not effective at all. And again, many of your community members have shared that information. As a pediatric nurse practitioner, I work in a primary care setting, so that you come into me just like you would your pediatrician, physicals, sick visits, etc. I have seen more patients over the past year with negative effects, symptoms from wearing the mask, whether it's psychological or physical, than I have seen patients with symptoms of COVID across the board. And any pediatrician that denies that is just protecting their job because they work for a large organization and they can't speak up. The studies from across the world are showing the same. The anxiety levels are through the roof, so as the suicide rate is up, and it is being blamed on these mandates that are occurring due to this pandemic. The current pediatric hospitalization rate, this is just another fact that I think you're being driven by. The current pediatric hospitalization rate across the entire country is 0.9%. And just to put that in perspective, it's been 0.9% since January. It has not changed. So what we're hearing in the news about this is not affecting children across the country. At its height, it was 3.8%, and that was in May of last year of 2020. So it's been 0.9. One question I did want to ask, I'm not sure if you're allowed to engage in conversation back and forth with speakers, is somebody when I came in said that Sachem will be basically basing their decisions on how are you going to mask based on the local infectious rate. In fact, not even Suffolk County or your school district, but based on the actual building. Is that correct?
So this is public comment. It's not an opportunity for debate,
Okay.
inquiry, or anything like that.
I would
So you
just
have an
say that
opportunity to speak, but-
Go ahead.
that would present a challenge. I think you're going to have parents constantly debating back and forth. And again, going with parent choice, allowing parents to take in the news from the community and have their own feeling about what it is. And those who are fearful, allow their child to continue wearing a mask or not. I think that that's going to be really tough, even though, again, I applaud you for speaking outside the box. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. I've been speaking a lot of Board of Ed meetings. Your community, so kind, respectful, regardless of, what a couple of remarks, but really just super respectful. And it's nice to just be here and listen to everybody. The parents care when there's controversy like this, and this controversy across not just our communities here, but across the state, across the country. It is dividing communities, families, the country. It is dividing everybody. There has to be a choice then. There has to be an option whether they wear masks or not. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, I mean, just so everybody knows, in case you came in later, you didn't hear Dr. Pelletieri say that nothing is in cement yet, nothing has been decided yet. We didn't want to take a vote before the community got to have more input between tonight, between email, between a Zoom that he's going to have. I know that last year the biggest complaint for the reopening plan was that there was no input. So we want to make sure that as much input as possible is given before we firm up a plan. So over the next week or 10 days before our next September 1st board meeting, we want the community to input, whether you get on the Zoom or you email or you call Dr. Pelletieri's office and give your input. That would be the best way to participate so that we can gather as much as possible too.
Mrs. Hines, this can be presented, this presentation will go up tomorrow morning? Okay, and then we'll have the Zoom date in there as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you everyone for coming. Yes, I have 3 cards here that are not to do with reopening or agenda items. We have 2 separate public comment. One for agenda items. So since he spoke about the reentry plan, reopening plan, whatever you want to call it, that was on the agenda. So those people got to speak. There are 2 about CRT, and actually we can call this one Celeste Spence. That's okay. Since we talked about reopening, well, please. You have another one? If not, we can call you guys later if you want. You now, if you want, please. I don't know.
Hi, my name is Amaya. I'm going into 5th grade at Nokomis. I don't want masks for many reasons. Number 1, I can't breathe, it gives me anxiety, and I can barely concentrate. I've been sent home from gym class multiple times for almost passing out while running in a mask outside, and was sent home forced to get tested for COVID. With that being said, please give us the option to make our own choice. I look forward to seeing my teacher and friends smile again. Like my grandpa says, masks is as ineffective. It's kind of like telling me to catch gnats with a chain link fence. Hi, my name is Melania Gambino. I'm 7 years old and I'm going in 3rd grade. I don't like masks because they give me bloody noses. Please don't make me wear a mask.
Thank you. Is there anyone else I forgot to call? The CRT is at the end, please. Yeah, at the end. Please. Is this non-CRT? Yeah, please. I didn't see your card. It may not have made it up.
Hello. Hi, good evening. My name is Tommy Schwaber. I'm a retired New York City firefighter. I was at ground zero I was down with ground zero for over a year and a half. I remember the CDC, the OEM, and the DOH, and all the politicians waving that the air was clean. We know that was a lie. My 2 children both go to Sachem School. One is in 4th grade. One is starting kindergarten. Some trust the science and some do not. I get it. If we are trusting science, then masks don't work, especially the masks I've seen. That gentleman is wearing an N95 mask. Can be done no more than 24 hours. Must disregard after one use, and it cannot be reused. I haven't seen N95s worn in a long, long time. I pick up my son from school every day. Still talking about science. They do not work, and why. We need to, and why would we have to mask our children? Statistically speaking, children rarely get sick from COVID, and even lesser them expire from COVID. Why haven't we masked our children in the common flu? Much more deadly than our children in COVID-19, and that's a fact. My son is turning 10 this year. All school year long, developed tics. The pediatrician says it's stress. Funny, he never had tics before. And moreover, the tics have gone away since the summer started. Do we know the psychological damage these young, innocent children are causing? Have we even thought of the bacteria on our masks our children are breathing in on a daily basis? Definitely more harm than good. My son comes home with his mask, and it's hard and crunchy, and it smells every single day. Lastly, my 5-year-old daughter says, "Daddy, why when we walk into a restaurant do we have to wear a mask, but when we sit down, we don't have to wear a mask?" She said, "Daddy, that makes no sense." And I said, "You're right. It doesn't make any sense. You know, why can we do this in restaurants but not in schools?" And today I get it. So thank you. But this is the political, strategic strategy and always will be. We are using children as pawn, and I speak for all parents. We are fed up. Make masks parents' choice. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on with the agenda. Oh, please. Please, I'm sorry, please.
Members of the board, I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to just say, please have an option, especially for special needs children in regards to remote learning. Like the other young lady said before, people have already made their decisions one way or the other. I'm just asking if you can please have either support services like OT or speech for special needs children. I do, and I am going to be homeschooling my little pumpkin here. And I just ask that we do have that option. That's it. And I just thank you for your time. Just that simple. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
He said you were amazing. On the top of page 3, number 5 is business items. Consent agenda A through C. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Reynolds, second by Mr. Isernia. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. On the top of page 4, personnel, teachers, consent agenda A through U. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Scavo, seconded by Mrs. Slattery. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Please.
So we'd like to welcome, can you hear me okay? We'd like to welcome some of our probationary teachers and teacher assistants who were just approved on the Board of Ed this evening. We had some great choices for lots of different positions who are going to, folks who are going to enhance the ongoing instruction and services for our students. So welcome to the Sachem family. We look forward to seeing you in action.
We're on page 14. Towards the bottom is number 7. Personnel, support staff, consent agenda A through M. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Scavo. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. I'll flip over to page 19. Number 8 is personnel administrators, consent agenda A through E. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Slattery, seconded by Mr. Icernia. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Tonight in the audience, we have a new administrator to our special education team. We have Mr. Eric Neithart. If I can ask him to just stand and be recognized. Mr. Neithart is coming to us from the North Babylon schools. We are lucky to have him join our team as the assistant to the executive director for special education. He comes to us with a wealth of experience and knowledge in supporting students with special education at a K-8 level. So welcome to the Sachem family, and we look forward to having you start in the upcoming months.
Thank you so much. On the bottom of page 20, contracts, consent agenda A through U. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Reynolds, seconded by Mrs. Pikowitz. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Over to page 26. Field trips, consent agenda A and B. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Scavo. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. On the top of page 27 is number 11, Committee on Special Education, consent agenda A through B. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Icernia. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Are there any monthly reports to be given? No? Okay, this is our second public portion. Everyone will be given 3 minutes. These are non-agenda items. Elizabeth Ruiz.
Hello. Okay. I would like to speak a bit about CRT in the school district. Many of us in the community are actively doing our own research and learning from other parents and other school districts what New York State is pushing downward to all of the public schools to adopt in order to obtain funding. We have learned that each district must adopt a certain percentage of material handed down by the state. We do not notice that on the Sachem website, there is a section titled DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity, and mention of SEL, Social Emotional Learning, both acronyms rebranded as CRT. It appears to have been rolled out already last year. We see the word equity often on your website, and this concerns many of us. For those who are not aware, these teachings emphasize that racism is involved in everything. It is a very destructive and very anti-American teaching. They do not believe in Martin Luther King's movement of judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. This theory is a belief system that the most important thing that matters is your race, not your behavior, values, morals, character, or environment. It teaches if you are a minority group, you are a victim of the system, and that system is rigged against you and doesn't want you to succeed. However, if you are a part of a race that is privileged, you are the exploiter or the oppressor. This personally bothers me. I am Hispanic. My husband is of Italian and Russian descent. I do not want my children to learn that my husband or in-laws oppress me or my other side of the family. My husband and I are equals. We teach equality in the home. Neither being superior nor inferior, greater nor less, better nor worse, stronger nor weaker. Equal. Where are the words on your website about equality? Parents in this community do not want these teachings in this district, nor do we want our kids taught to see race as a driving force of things, nor do we want them to become the government's future social justice warriors or activists. We as a community will fight these types of teachings until they no longer exist in our schools. We will not give up. Let our educators stick with teaching the basic subject matters and leave all the rest to the parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Fontana.
Hi, my name's Steve Fontana. I have a 16-year-old in the district. And first, I want to say congratulations to the board for opening up and listening to everybody's thoughts. We had a lot of thoughts on one side and one person who was brave enough to express her thoughts. And, that's kudos to her for that. But I think the voice of the many has been heard tonight. So hopefully you make the right decision. I can tell you transparency with CRT is an important thing. We have acronyms on the website. I didn't know what they were. I'm still trying to find out what they are. And I don't have any idea what my daughter's learning with regard to her race, our race, the kids sitting next to her. My daughter doesn't see black and white and yellow and green. She has friends of all colors. She doesn't need to be told that one person is less or she's less, or the boy next to her is going to oppress her. So I'd like to have more transparency in the district to understand what we're actually teaching with regard to CRT. We are Sachem. We are better than this. If you're burying CRT to get money, object to the state and stand up and get some metal. If you're obscuring it, open it up. Because if you're not opening it up, it means you're hiding. All of you are hiding. It was made comment that most people here are quite a bit older, which means that your children are probably older. My daughter's 16. How about our 5-year-olds, our 8-year-olds, our 10-year-olds, our 14-year-olds? I can tell you, my daughter has instructions that if she hears anything about CRT in her class, she's to get up and walk out and to call me immediately. I don't understand what's going on. We don't teach prejudice in my family. We teach that everybody's got a chance to be equal. We teach that work hard and you'll get lucky and things will happen eventually. Work hard and the profits will come to you, right? So I'd like to know, and I know you can't respond, but maybe on the website, I'd like to know what CRT means to the Sachem School District and what we are teaching and where we can find this. And I'd like to see it within the next month because it should be pretty easy because you have some sort of curriculum. And if you don't post that curriculum, we'll understand, and not someplace in the back or in some acronyms, but someplace in the front because we've heard a lot of clapping. There must be a lot of support for clarity on CRT. The other, I'd just like to close with a famous quote that nobody can see in the back, but what the best and wisest parent wants for his own child, that must the community want for all of its children. Any other ideal for our schools is narrow and unlovely. Acted upon, it destroys our democracy. Now, if we put these things up on the walls, let's pay attention to what we're putting on the walls. I think perhaps the only place we need a mask, or one of the few places, like this gentleman has here, is in the room that some of us were sent to as the overflow, which smells like mustiness and has probably molecules that probably is going to make me sick in the next few days. So if you're going to stick our kids in that musty, cruddy, carpeted room a few doors down, then close that and take the masks off our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I wasn't sure. I tried to get the head nods from Brandy.
Thanks. So 2 things. You had asked for the board to update you on all the different
Committees.
Committees, thank you.
Yep.
And I had put in an application back when I was still a board member, and I haven't heard anything back, so I just wanted to bring that up.
That's going to be on the board discussion in a couple minutes.
Okay, great. And the next thing was just because Tommy was able to speak about being a 9/11 firefighter, which thank you, Tommy, for your service. It brought me to realize about this whole masking thing. We're all fighting about the mask. We're all saying because of our children's health and everything. And one of the biggest things for Sachem is the safety of everyone. And with 9/11's 20th anniversary coming up and with the world being the way it is right now, I think it would really be safe for our children to not be masked unless they chose to be, for the benefit of our teachers and our staff. You can't tell who somebody is with a mask on. When I was on the board, I told you guys, a mom put a hoodie on, put a mask on, and walked right into her kids' schools, and the teachers were none the wiser because they didn't know who that was. So at the very least for September, I don't think there should be any masks.
Thank you. On the top of page 28, letter B is board discussions. Board committees is up here. Mr. Isernia? Did you want to start it and then we can kind of go from there?
Yeah, I guess I'll start it.
Is yours on?
Am I on? Hello?
You want to take Matthews?
Hello? Testing.
No.
Now it's on? Okay.
You can hear him?
So, not too well.
Matthew, give him yours and maybe you can, yeah.
Testing.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
So this was my item I brought up, and I thought we would have a discussion before the new year starts about some changes, possible changes to our committee structures, changes to our the standing committees. We do have a board policy. It mentions that we have both ad hoc and standing committees, but I don't think we've ever exercised that option. My experience on the Budget Advisory Committee, and it was kind of echoed when I spoke to Vinny about the Budget Advisory Committee, for instance, that that committee probably would be better stated as an ad hoc committee and be charged and constituted if we needed them to actually look at something in the budget. Because we all know that the budget is, I don't want to say 75%, but a good portion of the budget is already fixed. I'm sure Mr. O'Keefe could give us the exact number of that. So when we ask the Budget Advisory Committee to look at certain things, they're only looking at certain parts of it. And I don't want to put people in the community on a committee and then not have to really charge them with something to do. So I thought that committee would be an ad hoc committee. And when I say ad hoc, it means that we would have a discussion at a board meeting. And if we wanted to charge them, we would ask for community members that at that point and have them constitute at that time. Same thing, I think, with the legislative committee. The other committees, I think, need to be standing committees. I did have I'd sent you I think I only sent it to you, just some outlines of my thoughts on this. I don't know did you forward it to anybody else? Because I didn't see it.
Are you pointing at me or Rob?
Yeah, you.
I don't know if I got it. I thought, didn't you get
actually
it?
sent it to everybody.
Oh, I did. Oh, okay. I thought I sent
I
it
don't
to
know
you.
if I got it.
Okay. So first thought was to change the characteristics of the committees to either ad hoc or.
Actually, hold on, jump in, Mike. So it looks like it was just sent to myself and Rob when maybe you.
Oh my
you sent
God.
it to Alex.
Okay.
I didn't get it.
All right.
That's
There you go. I was going to say, I thought it was just you and Rob. Okay.
You sent it on the 13th about 8:00 at night. So
I must have been, yeah.
yeah, it's fine.
Drinking. So the other thing I thought we need to do is also discuss limiting the size of these committees because to some odd number, of course, so when they vote, they wouldn't be tied. But, 5, 7, or 9 people rather than getting into 14, 16, 18. I think it becomes very cumbersome for the committee chairman. So we should discuss a size limit. And I think we need to make it clear committees run from July 1 to, roughly July 1 at the time of appointment to June 30th, so that every year a board can reconstitute what they need to reconstitute. That every committee should be required to have a chairman, a secretary to record that their meeting and minutes should be compliant with OML. I'm sure Mr. Clayton would agree with that. They can elect a vice chairman, and this way they have a representative to represent themselves to the board without having to have multiple points of contact. I also think, and I know this might be controversial, but when I was on the Budget Advisory Committee, when I was on the Capital Projects Advisory Committee, and I don't know how anybody else felt that when a board member was on that had just come off the board, that there was this kind of feeling that maybe they know something that there's a natural inclination to defer to them, that we may want to not allow board members to coming off their first year to wait a certain grace period, like 6 months before we could put them on a committee, or a year, whatever we want to come up with, just to get rid of that stigma. And then also the last thing is, if we're going to limit the number of people on a committee, we should limit people to one committee assignment to maximize the opportunity for community. So those were some of the things I outlined in that thing I thought I just sent to you and Rob, but I actually sent to Rob and Vinny at 8 o'clock at night when I didn't know what I was doing. So this is where I was going with this. I guess we could have a discussion, or I could try to resend those things to everybody and we could discuss it again next time.
I sent it to everybody, and I would sort of, I just flipped it to everybody.
Please.
So
I just sent it to all the board members.
Jim and then Laura, please.
Yeah, I have no problem with the structure part of what you were saying, Mike. I think a lot of these committees do not have a good structure as far as, a facilitator or a scribe or something like that. I'm in favor of structuring them better, or maybe even, the ad hoc label on some of them that really don't meet unless we need them to meet. But I'm kind of against limiting numbers. Committees are kind of the thing that community members really can get involved in. And once you start limiting numbers, you're limited to, say, 10. Now you're going to tell number 11 and 12 that they can't join. I just don't like that. I mean, we've had committees of 200 when we were building East, 200. We've had committees on the closing of schools. That was, I don't know, maybe 100, a lot. So we've had it, and it works. You could do it. It's just a little cumbersome, but it works. So I'd be against limiting numbers, and I'd also be against the former board member thing. I don't think because a board member is no longer on the board that they should wait at all. I mean, they're now a community member, and they should be considered like any other community member.
I didn't mean it as to be did I come across like saying that was a total elimination, like that you couldn't serve? Or I thought what I was talking about was a deferment period for town board service. Was I not clear on that? Or
Deferment about 6 months being maybe too close, maybe no.
right? I didn't mean like they could never serve again.
No, I got that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm against them even being stopped from going right on. Yeah. Laura? Then Vinny.
Yeah, so
This is going to be a board discussion. We're just going to let everyone
Right.
go, and then we'll go from there.
okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in agreement with Jim. I think we should never limit community members that want to be involved in any committee. I've been on committees in Sachem for over 20 years. I've been attending board meetings since my son Michael was in kindergarten. So I've been an active member on many committees, from facility. I've been on the audit committee for many years. And if I wasn't still on the board this year, if things didn't happen, I would have expected to continue being on the audit committee like I have been. The audit committee, we do have very structured. We report back, or the auditors come and give their presentations, and it is structured. And the number, I believe, John, is limited, correct, on audit?
There is a specific charter for the audit committee.
That's set by the state or something like that. Anytime a community member wants to be involved, I would never, turn a community member away. That's just my opinion. And also, for many community members that think about running for the board at some point, I think the committees are the way to get your foot in the door, to see what's going on in our district, to be involved, whether it's on, an ad hoc committee like facilities, or the building of East, or just getting involved in the budget advisory committee. I remember when Vinny presented last year on the 1-to-1, and you gave that presentation. I was so impressed. I'm like, wow, I hope he runs for the board, because you did a really great presentation. And I think it brings more community, and it gives more community members a chance to have a voice. So that's just my opinion.
Vinny?
Yeah, no, Mike, thanks for putting this together. Just a couple of thoughts, right? Let's take the budget committee. I think you're proposing sort of an ad hoc. I think that's an important one to make a standing committee, because again, it's the tax dollars that we're looking at, right? Perhaps we need to reshape that a little bit to get involved earlier in the process, because when we got the budget, it was pretty much cooked, right? It was more just checks and balances. So I do think it's important to have that as a standing committee. We may want to change that where we charge the board with doing projects like the one-to-one or the ninth period day. Maybe that's a ad hoc special projects committee, right? Not sure the relation to the budget, right? Where I think the community is going to want to see the budget go line item and just ensure that we're spending their dollars appropriately, right? So that's just one comment. The only other comment I have is multiple people on multiple committees. We probably should think about limiting it perhaps to one, because we do have some people that are on 3 and 4 committees, which now, could give the appearance we're running a shadow board, right? We just need to, I think, maybe look at that as something to talk about, right? Okay.
Anyone else?
That's it.
Rob? Sabrina, please. Sorry.
I agree. I don't feel like we should be limiting any community members to being on any type of board. I think you're not being transparent in our thoughts if we do that. I think in terms of limiting, I think some of the committees are limited. I know diversity, I think they only chose 5 or whatever amount of parents and students and whatnot. I think in limiting to the number of committees somebody could be on is if we have someone who's on 4 committees and one committee's filled and they're on, gracefully they could move off so we could have someone who wants to join the committee, maybe not. Because I think it's a great first step into really seeing the behind the scenes of this district. And I wouldn't want to limit somebody because someone's on 4 committees, and I wouldn't want to limit someone just because, they've walked off the board, they're not on the board anymore. They still want to have a say in that aspect. So that's how I feel.
So there's been very, very good valid points tonight. Could you hear me? Some things I agree with, some things I don't agree with. I think, anytime you serve on a committee, especially a chairperson or a co-chair or even a board liaison, limiting the size of the committee, I think is important. I think sometimes you can get more done with a manageable size committee. Having 20 people on a budget advisory committee, and I'm not saying that's happening, sometimes could be much difficult to manage and handle with so many different perspectives and views. So I would be okay with coming up with a charter for the committees, picking a predetermined number as to what we want that number to be, and also have some look. There are sometimes when people join committees and never show up.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And you know what? Like, we used to have a charter for the budget advisory committee. It said if you miss 3 meetings without good reason, you could be replaced. With somebody else that's going to put the time and roll their sleeves up and do the work. So I don't have a problem with limiting the size of the committee and putting some solid language in there as to what the charter does and with the follow, maybe even term limits. But I also with Vinny, in touch with Vinny said, maybe opening up the committees to a lot of different people so that we don't have multiple people on multiple committees. Just to get different, fresh perspectives. Everything else I'm okay with.
Yeah, just one comment. I mean, we did get to answer Meredith's question. We got a lot of applications, right? So we've got a stack. We've got to go through them, and we're seeing a lot of new names, which is great. So I think we do want that, diverse cross section of the community, right? So.
Okay, take it.
Say is when people sign up for multiple committees, and we used to actually collect resumes, and if somebody had an accounting background and signed up for the legislative committee and we felt they'd be better served on the budget advisory committee, we might say, well, listen, would you be willing to serve in the budget advisory committee versus the you check both boxes, but we think you'd be a better fit on this committee because of your experience. We used to do that in the past, and it seemed to get the best out of people's talents. So.
Okay, and just so for my 6 years on the board, I can only speak to that. I don't think we've ever had 20 people sign up for a committee, honestly. I know on the budget advisory, but people may sign up and maybe 5 people show up. I've been on curriculum council. Sometimes we have a lot of parents come. Sometimes we have 2 parents come. I just feel any community member that wants to be involved in a committee should have the opportunity to be involved in a committee. I don't ever, we have sometimes 5 people at a board meeting. We have nobody come to board meetings at times. I want to increase our community involvement. I want to increase our community input. And the way to do that is to open up committees, let people, that's how I learned as much as I did before I ever ran for the board. And so I think it's important to get community input and involvement. And that's why I would be very leery about limiting committees. I mean, if we get 50 people responding, I think we may have a problem. I just haven't seen that happen.
Anyone else? All right, so let's just settle this tonight. There's no reason to, so there's a ton of applications and I think people want to be on committees and we should just put them on and do it that way. Does anyone, how many people are not for limiting the amount of people on there? Not limiting. Not limiting, no limit. As many people as want to be on the committee, they can be on it.
Yeah, unlimited to a reason, right? We got.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to be 100. I've seen the,
So let's go with unlimited right now. And we've got to just
Unlimited up to, we'll
we
re-advise if
reserve
we
the
get to
right
50 or
kinda
100.
Have a judgment call if we get, 1,000 people on it, which that would be great, but we just got to figure that out, right?
Good. Good. That's good. All right. Does everyone agree that there should be a chairman, a vice chair, so that they can take the numbers? Everyone's good with that? Good. Yep. Does anyone think that a board member, former board member, should have to wait a year, 6 months, anything like that? It's okay. It's your opinion. It's okay. So there's no wait. As far as ad hoc, which committees does anyone want to put a committee on as ad hoc? So like right now, what would be the charge of the legislative committee per se, or the budget advisory? What are the charges of those committees? What do we want them to get in a room together and say, here's what we're working on tonight? Go ahead.
Again, is that better suited for a special projects committee that we do ad hoc? I don't think some of these projects are really geared towards the budget committee, right? It takes the focus away.
So
from what we're trying to do.
Can we put people on to these committees, but say, listen, you're not going to meet until we have something for you, and then we'll charge you with something, and then that's when your meeting. Like as of right now, if the budget advisory committee met tomorrow, what is going to be their job? I'm asking because I don't know.
I've got to look to Mr. O'Keefe and say, how do we want to engage with that? Right?
Typically, the
We
board
could-
would give the budget advisory committee its charge. That would
Right.
be
Yeah,
the
so
thing.
that's what I'm
You guys
asking.
would put your heads together and
historically,
say,
It's a
charge of, hey, look at
subcommittee
the
of
right
us.
period day, look at the one-to-one Chromebooks,
right,
right?
you'd have
That was the
you'd have
charge.
the authority to give that charge to them. And look at something where perhaps you could even say, I can give you a list, which I have back at the office, of those committees which you're legally required to have.
Yep.
And then, you guys in your communal wisdom and knowledge of the community can make a decision about what special projects, ad hoc committees, whatever it may be, you may need in a given year that you want to create, and the charter that you want to make for them in some fashion. So certainly, that's if you want to spend some time thinking about that, you could come back together.
Yeah, my only
after that.
question is that the right spot in the budget committee for a special charge, right? Do we pull it out and just focus on the budget, right?
My opinion in the Budget Advisory Committee, when I was a board liaison for 13 years, is that, normally when they review the budget, it usually happens from January or February through April and May. And they recommend or advise on the budget. Those other months, there's not anything for them to do. So, historically, we've always charged them with different minor, smaller projects, purchasing things, recommendations on, generating, revenue for the district, and then reporting back to the board. And we would either say, yeah, we agree with that, or we don't. So I would leave it to that committee. I really would. Otherwise, for a good part of the year, they're not going to have anything to meet about.
Okay. So we can
That's
appoint to
fine. We
those
can agree
committees
with
and
that,
then
yeah.
we can kind of figure it out from there.
That's fine. And then we just have to figure out what we want to charge them with starting September, right?
Mike?
That's fine.
So that's, this is what Rob mentioned was what I was envisioning a budget advisory committee. We weren't not even in the budget cycle yet. So what would we be asking them to do at this moment, right? So we're talking about, it's an ad hoc committee. We'll put people on it and tell them that they'll be called later in the year if there's something we want to charge them with, or do we want to, at that point, advertise for membership and then get it then? I guess that's really the only question. It's ad hoc. It's on standby, or is it ad hoc, or?
I think it's a standing, Mike, right? I think it's a standing committee.
No, I mean standby. In other words, we'll let them know they're on the committee, and if they're needed to be charged by us, we would call them.
And then when the budget comes around, that's when they'll start to meet officially.
So it's like they're on standby, right?
Okay.
And I'm thinking the same thing with legislative committee.
A standing committee on standby is what I think you're saying.
I guess.
Okay.
And I would think the same thing with legislative committee. My experience with that has been like we wait, kind of see as budgets coming along, whether or not there's any issues that we need them to. Now, today, there may be plenty of things for them to legislate, to go. But typically that was kind of weaned in as you got later into the year too. So That was the other committee I was thinking about.
Alex, just
Please.
my thought with legislative committee, what they used to do, remember, was the town hall like meeting where they'd ask our local like
Yeah.
assemblymen, everything come, and then parents could come and ask questions, submit questions. And this way it gave more like a one-on-one for our local politicians to meet with the community, and we got to ask questions. So I thought something that the legislative committee could work on would be, again, reaching out to local, whether it be town councilmen or supervisors, assemblymen, to come, and all the questions that we have, this way it's a one-on-one in a small forum with our community.
Perfect. Anyone else? The only other task force or committee that I wanted to talk about was the diversity task force. I want to make it a committee. I don't think it should be a task. I want to make it a board committee, just like the rest of them. Like, no, but last year, right? Like they added books into libraries, or they had a guest speaker. I don't remember anybody presenting that they wanted changes made. Like, so if the budget advisory came, Vinny came, right? Made a whole presentation. Here was our findings. Here's what we think, and did that. I saw no presentation from that task force. So I just want it to be on a level playing field with the rest of them that says you're a sub-board committee. If you have any recommendations or suggestions, that you come present, and then we decide whether or not we think that's appropriate for the community or the district, and go from there. I don't know if that's how it was last year, but I'd like it to be that way this year. We had student involvement in that. That one we did limit, and I don't know if that's something that you guys want to do again or not, but that was a limited amount of community members, because I know that there was teachers on it, there was administrators on it, there were students on it. So we kind of limited it that way so that they could be productive. But if that's something that you all want to keep again, I would be okay with that. But I just want to make that minor change if anyone has an issue.
Alex, that limit was the number that was determined by Dr. Pelletieri.
Yeah.
And I
we were all-
support his,
we
I
all
would support
went.
his recommendation, on that.
Is everyone okay with making that minor adjustment? I know that some of us weren't here last year, so I didn't know if.
I don't remember them making a presentation, but I wasn't on the
No,
board.
there
so.
wasn't. So like if there's a guest speaker that we need to approve or pay, even if it's funded by a grant, it needs to be, like, we should be asked. Like, I don't know who these people are that are going to come
It's got to be
speak.
transparency
Yeah.
with that, and I think by making it the committee, we're going to drive transparency,
Yeah.
and we've got to have
Yeah.
that presentation to the board and the community as to what
Yeah.
we were charged.
Nothing behind closed doors is the issue. So, yeah, good. Yeah. Anyone else? Good with that? Okay, so we can keep the name, but it's going to be a subcommittee of the board, just like the rest of them. Anyone else?
Did we talk about the limiting one committee per person to decide on?
No. Is that something that you guys want to do? Please. I'm sorry, I skipped it. I tried to write it down as everything. Do you think that people should be on multiple committees? Yes or no? So raise your hand if you think that it's okay that people be on multiple committees. I'm okay with that too. So we'll have to wait in one more meeting. We'll do that again when if and when Sarah comes back.
If we have popularity for a committee and that person's on 4 committees and we have someone who's new, then we're going to ask someone who's on 4 committees to step off one so that other person can join.
Correct.
Yep.
And I
Just
totally
to be
agree
fair,
with
so that we could have more people involved and
I
not
didn't hear
saying
what you said, Jim.
can't
I'm
because
sorry.
someone's on 4 committees.
I said we did that with board members.
Right.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Okay. Good. Anyone else on committees? Good. On July 23rd, Mr. Kieran, you sent an email. I just wanted to put it on here because I didn't think it was appropriate to have an email discussion about vaccinations. Please.
Well, interestingly, I just want to make sure that everybody there, everybody here understands in no way, shape, or form am I talking about discussing mandate vaccinations. What I thought may be good is for us to charge the Health and Safety Committee to look into the possibility of maybe encouraging people in our district to get vaccinated. Not mandated, but encouraging. That's just something to throw to the Health and Safety Committee.
I'll go first. I go watch a Yankee game. Every other commercial is about vaccinations. You turn the corner, I don't know if there's anybody that doesn't know that vaccinations are available. And I think that if we start bringing it into the schools, just like when we voted not to have, the state came down and asked us if we wanted to be a vaccination state, and we basically unanimously said no. They wanted to use the gym, they wanted to come in, we said no. So I would be hesitant to even put a poster up in the nurse's office. Just because I just feel like then a child goes in there and sees that, and then one kid feels pressured. I feel like we did a disservice to everybody. It's bad enough it's on TV and they monopolize the airwaves. I just think we should separate that
Well,
from here.
I
That's
hear
my
you.
opinion, my one opinion.
I hear you. It's not my opinion. My opinion is we should be telling people, asking people to get vaccinated. So we differ.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Just for clarification, when we say we're asking people, are we talking about community or student population?
No. Community.
Community. Yeah, I mean, look, anybody that wants to get vaccinated knows how to do it. They know where to go to get vaccinated. I certainly wouldn't want to do it as a district, only because I don't want the perception to be that we're promoting it or supporting it. Me personally, I'm vaccinated. I would not put my children in that seat to get vaccinated because they're young. They're too young for me. And without having, I wouldn't want to promote something without knowing what the long-term effects are. If we knew if there were any long-term effects, and it was a flu vaccine, and maybe that vaccine doesn't have, tremendous effects, I would support it. But it's the vaccine is so new and so unknown that I couldn't get behind that.
I'll pull it.
You don't want to talk about it anymore? Okay. I just didn't want to do it over email because I just didn't think it was appropriate. That's okay. Anybody for a future board discussion item? For next, we're going to meet again in September 1st to hopefully talk about the reopening plan and then vote on it officially. Please.
The technology plan with the Chromebooks one-to-one coming in. I know a lot of people are having discussions on supplies and what supplies, and the kids are supposed to be getting Chromebooks. To what extent are they going to be using them? I think still, again, expectations for teachers in terms of what that's going to look like, the expectation for the students, the parents. I think, we're getting very close to the school year. This is something that's going to go, get rolled out. And I don't think the community has heard a lot about it, because I know that even a couple of my friends reach out to me like, hey, do you know what the supply list is? And I said, well, we are getting Chromebooks. Like, oh, really? We are? There's community members who don't know that that's about to come out. So, I know I brought that up at the, the first meeting when I was sworn in, but still to reiterate that plan and well, that's what it's going to look like going forward.
So I'll just speak to that very quickly, and then we'll ask for a more pronounced and prolonged presentation about it. But we are prepared to distribute Chromebooks to our students grades 6 through 12. We are putting cases on them. We are accepting delivery of those cases. It's supposed to come tomorrow. Those would be distributed to our students that first week of school during the school day in various classes. We'll make sure that gets done. We're hoping to give them to teachers before the school year starts on Superintendent's Conference Day, September 1st and 2nd. But we'll give a detailed plan around expectations and whatnot as we get closer to the school year.
Please.
It doesn't have to be next week, but I'd like to have a discussion about our website. I'd be honest with you, I was in the nurse's office yesterday turning in physical forms, and I overheard the nurse say, well, tell the person in front of me it was the wrong form. And I spent 15 minutes trying to find the physical form on our own website. It's very, very difficult to navigate through our website. It's so many clicks, and search words sometimes don't even bring up the information. There was some things brought up tonight about CRT, curriculum, what's being taught in a curriculum. I'd like that to be so transparent that it takes any question out of the equation as to what's being taught in our school. And right now, it's very, very difficult to. I'd like to see where those acronyms are, and if we could follow up on the people that spoke tonight, I'd like to see it myself. It's very, very hard to navigate through our website. So I don't know if if a future discussion would bring maybe changes to our website to make it maybe more user friendly, less clicks, a lot easier to gather information that the community needs. But certainly I have some concerns with how it is. It's always been an issue of contention. We've had an old website, we had to improve it. We improved it with this new website, which I'm not really sure is any better than the old website. So I'd like to be able to maybe have a discussion on how we can do it to make it more user-friendly, more community-friendly, to be able to acquire documents very easily. You know, here I am on the board and I couldn't find a physical form. You know, it wasn't at the, my fingertips. Sometimes the physical forms were in different school websites. So all of a sudden would bring me to the Sagamore website, and that link. So just a future discussion item on maybe updating or improving our website.
If I could just speak to that, I'm actually meeting with our website folks tomorrow because this was raised to me earlier this summer. Actually, our board president mentioned it to me as well, exactly in the same vein of what you're speaking of. So I'm meeting with the folks tomorrow, and actually I'll invite you as well if you want to maybe come in and not tomorrow because we're going to plan it out, but when we go through, we'll sit down and do some clicking and see where we bounce around. The difficulty is we want access to everything. So we want everything on kind of the main page so I can find it easily. And it's just so much information that needs to go out to everybody. So it's hard to figure out exactly where everything needs to be and to get it all out there. But we will work to improve it. And that's a conversation I'm having
But
tomorrow.
maybe, Chris, maybe we can move things around. So like right now, physical seems to be a big thing right now. Kids are gearing up for sports. If it's buried somewhere in our athletics page,
Right.
we need to put it on the front page so people can find it.
So here's a perfect opportunity to engage the community, right? Why don't we get an ad hoc group to understand what is it that the community needs to see when they go to a website? No different than I come from private industry, right? You get a user group that can kind of walk through what is it they need to see and sort of build it there. This way we don't build something and the community says it's just as bad as the last one, right? So that's something to consider where we need to, whatever internal, perhaps we engage the community with a task force to kind of do some user acceptance testing, things like that. So just a thought. And then just couple of things, Alex.
Please.
I don't want to lose sight of the board goals, right? We went through a pretty good discussion around all these goals. I don't have anything specific now for next discussion, but I think let's not lose sight of these,
Yep.
right? And we did ask for a few things in terms of, current state on the financials. What are we projecting over the next 3 to 5 years? What's our plan for the district over the coming years, right? And especially, I know some of the newer folks like myself, we asked for that. So
Yep.
I don't know where we put that on, but let's, don't want it to slip.
We drafted our board goals. We're going to finalize them at our retreat on September 1 and share them with the community on that night as well. So we're going to have a pretty long meeting the night of September 1st, but an important one.
Good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Please, Mike.
Chris, in one of our packages, there was a couple of things I thought were of interest, and I think the community would be interested in seeing. And that one is the use of these career trees in the CTE realm, where the kids go to an exercise and they start a tree, and it actually kind of steers them into things of their interest to maybe guide them to future careers. I don't. So there was actually a whole presentation. Anybody else see that? That was in the packet. So if we could, once they start to use that, if that faculty can make a presentation on how that was used and if it was successful. And
Sure. Yeah. Career and technological education. Career and technology and education. Yeah. CTE.
yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Presentation maybe for
Yep.
that group.
And also, I was very curious about the curriculum around the seal of civic readiness. Can we have a presentation on that?
Sure. Yes. That is around students in the secondary buildings, right, Aaron? I don't know.
Sorry. It's around civic readiness.
Yes.
In terms
participating
of
in
Yep.
voting and
Yep. But this actually helps students to accrue credits so that they can get an additional seal on the graduation diploma. We actually haven't started it yet. This was our work that we were going to be bringing through our curriculum council and having that conversation.
Thank you.
Anyone else? The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be Wednesday, September 1st, right here in the board annex. And if we are expecting a big crowd, I know that we tried to move tonight's meeting, but the auditorium is being refurbished, and the gym was not able to use our technology. So hopefully, if we're going to have a larger crowd again, like tonight, maybe we can slide it over there and work on anything that we need to as far as audio and visual for any presentations. Can I have a motion and a second for the purpose of discussing a particular personnel? Motion by Mrs.
Also,
Slatters.
Mr. Pickerel, collective negotiations, legal advice regarding potential or pending litigation, and discussion of the sale or lease of real property.
Yep, all that too. Mrs. Slattery, 1, Mr. Reynolds, 2, all in favor? Opposed? Good night, everyone. I have to go to the bathroom.